You, tabletop gamer, I know that you've played your way through the Tolkien back catalog of elves, dwarves, halflings, and sexy elves. Now you're looking for something new, something a little weird, something that fills in the gap between nostalgia and monstrosity. Well, listen up, sicko. Battlezoo Ancestry Living Legends is here to fill that hole. Featuring 14 unique ancestries for your Pathfinder 2e or D&D 5th edition games, like Swarmblood, a creature made of hundreds of other little creatures. Ew. Gargoyles, where you can disguise as an ordinary statue but also become a warrior of the night. Angels, devils, sphinxes, evil eyes. Look at them. I love them and will die for them. And the most chaotic ancestry of them all, fusions. Play as an ancestry that combines multiple characters in one, like a chimera, or two-headed giant, or even a mighty hydra. Is that a party in your character, or are you just happy to see me? You could either share this character with other players or control it all yourself. In front of you is a golden idol placed on a pedestal.
My character does an Arcana check to determine its origin and any possible enchantment that might... I'ma stick it up me bum!
Battlezoo Ancestry's Living Legends includes in-depth information about each creature's culture, society, and history. Plus, you'll get hundreds of digital tokens and illustrations that work with any VTT, and thousands of unique options and custom rules for players or game masters to build the strangest characters imaginable. So what's stopping you from playing as a weird and wonderful legendary creature, huh? Check out Battlezoo Ancestry's Living Legends at legends.rollforcombat.com today.
Don't forget you can get the book digitally or in a beautiful hardcover. I'ma stick that up me bum and all.
We're live!
Hi, everybody. Welcome
dead.
to Roll for Combat Live.
We're not dead. Not yet. In time.
If you're watching this video in, several decades from now, then I'm kind of surprised that, this is like a pretty time-wise topical video that maybe won't be one that people care about in 30 or 40 years, but we might not still be alive.
Well, they're going to see it
you'll have
and
to
say,
determine that.
They're going to say Steve was right all along. Just like always.
Is that going to be on your headstone? Stephen Glicker was right. He was right all along.
I was until about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I messed up something bad, and I'm still won't get into it. It makes me upset, but the rare miss for me. But it was a big one, unfortunately. Just my personal life, nothing big. Anyhow, but yes, today we have Baron DeRop.
Hi, guys.
From Dungeon Masterpiece, who's here to tell you all about Green Dragon Fest.
I guess I am, yeah. So everybody go check out greendragonfest.com if you haven't seen a few of the ads that some of the Dungeon Masters who are going to be there talk about it on their YouTube channels. I'm hosting the second annual Green Dragon Fest. It's a convention at Ancient Lore Village in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's a legally distinct shire, but all-inclusive resort type thing. Looks like it's straight out of Hobbiton. You get to request, not specifically pick, but request some of your favorite game masters and YouTubers you want to play with. I'll be there. Professor Dungeon Master will be there. Kelsey Dion from the Arcane Library will be there. A whole bunch of others. Bob World Builder and Grace World Destroyer. But yeah, go check it out. There are only, I think at the time of this recording, there are like 19 tickets remaining. I feel like that's right. It's definitely less than like 22 or something.
Am I going to be there, or are we not figured that out yet? I don't know.
We haven't figured that out yet. You keep saying, yeah, I want to come.
I'll go.
All right. And Steven is going to be there, everyone. So come play games with Steven Glicker. It's now official on the internet.
Okay, he said it now.
I put it on my schedule. Oh,
did you? Okay.
Yeah. My internal.
Right.
I have like an internal schedule I use for everything, and it doesn't conflict with anything.
Awesome.
So
it would have been sad not to have Steven. It seems like all of the Hangout crowd is there. I went to the site because you said to go there, Baron. I looked at who was in there. I was like, that's everybody who always sits together at cons.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to be in the cool kids club, that's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, it's got to figure out what to run.
Provided the meals are all prepared by a chef who used to work at a Michelin star restaurant. It's the
Just
food was
one
absolutely
Michelin
fantastic.
star. Ugh.
Just a single Michelin star.
Fuck.
It is only Knoxville. You want to get 2 Michelin stars, we'd have to go to Nashville or Atlanta.
I don't even know if there's actually. I don't even know if there's any real 2 Michelin star restaurants in the United States. I don't even know if there are any.
Surely there are 2 Michelin star. 2 Michelin.
I don't know if there are.
Star
It's
restaurants.
even one is extremely rare.
Oh yeah, super rare. 2 stars. I'm currently looking on the website. How many restaurants in the USA? New York, of course. I'm looking for anything that's not New York.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Oh, there's one in Brooklyn.
No, it's New York.
No, technically,
yes,
it's not.
is. Yes, it is. New York City is 5 boroughs.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. But that's all technically New York City.
No.
Legally, it's New York City. So there's 2 in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 in Chicago, 1 in San Francisco, 1 in there's a few more in San Francisco.
I'm actually
Hollywood, USA. Does that mean Hollywood, Florida, or Hollywood, California?
Probably California.
Of
I've been to
course.
Hollywood. Hollywood, Florida is you have like Fuddruckers and
Right.
like over there. Been to it.
Somehow, I don't think Fuddruckers has any number of Michelin stars.
I'm looking at these. Jean George. That's the only. I've actually never heard of any of these except for Jean
There's
George.
one in Oakland, California. I'm kind of surprised by that.
Why? Oakland's nice.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
I've
rich.
never been.
Yeah, well, there's parts of it. There's 2 parts of Oakland. There's the not so nice, and then there's the very nice. So there's both.
Okay.
But that's why you come to Roll for Combat to hear all about food.
Hey,
man,
Steven's other favorite thing besides.
Hey,
How
man.
many 3 Michelin star restaurants are there?
None, 0. I don't think there's a single one
I think
in the United
there's
States.
14 in the
There's
US.
14 in the US.
There are? Really?
Yep. 1,
Wow.
2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there's 5 in New York, 1 in Washington, 2
Now you're making me
in
look.
Chicago. What the heck is Yountville? Where is that?
Huntsville, California. Also, the one that's in Washington, I just looked it up, is in Washington, Virginia, not Washington, D.C.
That's Washington, D.C.
Oh,
It is?
11 Madison. Actually, okay,
It
I was
says
going to
it's
say
a historic village located in the eastern foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains near Shenandoah
really?
National Park, Washington, Virginia. Yes.
the French Laundry. I mean, I know that one. That one's famous. 11 Madison Park. I've actually been to 11 Madison Park. Let's see. It's the only one that was really good. Oh yeah, Gordon Ramsay's. Yeah, I know some of these. I'm a big foodie. 11 Madison Park. I haven't been there in 10 years. I got to go back. It was really good.
Anyway, to loop this back to Green Dragon Fest,
Yes.
the food is fantastic.
Okay.
You can go check out the menu at what's the URL? What's the path? The Green Dragon.
I don't know. It's your damn thing.
I know. I can't remember where to send the people to specifically. It's schedule of events, schedule-of-events, and you can see all the food. You get. There's also a meme about the broccoli. So if you come, you will learn about the inside joke about the broccoli at Green Dragon Fest. Specifically, it's really just that even the broccoli was shockingly fantastic. So that's it.
Wow, that sounds fancy. Anyhow,
Anyway.
so if you give the link, Mark can post it.
There you go. You know what? Say anything else about Steven, but Steven always remembers the links to all of his things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put the link in if you let me.
There we go. I just posted it in Zoom.
Okay, I'll grab it from there and I will send it right in. All right, so that is greendragonfest.com. But Steven, surely you want to tell people more about whether D&D is becoming Marvel based on your experience growing up near Marvel.
Well, before we do that, there was a little bit of news I did want to mention. They did announce that, let's see, what's that called? Not Critical Role. Dragonheart. Dragonheart has a release date. Dragonheart is coming out May 20th. So
when you say Dragonheart, now do you mean Daggerheart?
You mean the 1996?
Oh, Daggerheart. Sorry, Daggerheart. I meant Daggerheart.
Okay.
I was looking at Dragon and Dagger at the same time. Dragonheart. Yeah, that's our game. We're gonna come out with
do you have the license for the Dragonheart movie so that you could make the official game of the Dragonheart movie?
They have not been enforcing it, and if they don't enforce it, then I can just. It's an abandoned IP. I'll just take it over.
You know what though? I mean, in the Eternal Dragons, the Lux Eterna, you can do the ritual where you like weaken your dragon to allow a mortal to survive being almost dead. And didn't that happen to like the bad guy in Dragonheart, where the dragon saved him, but then he was a villainous asshole?
This is the first and last time this will ever happen. I never saw Dragonheart, and Mark did. I know Mark saw a movie that I did not see.
Wait, Steven Glicker,
I haven't seen that movie. And
it's garbage. That's why.
How could you not have watched a
garbage?
movie?
It's bad garbage. There's good bad movies and bad.
It was a 1996 film.
I'm
gonna have to give you some homework.
Garbage.
I'm gonna have to give you some
better
homework
than the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
No, it wasn't.
The Dragonheart movie.
The second Dungeons and Dragons movie is actually pretty good.
I'm not serious. I just have to say that because of all the times you tried to give me shit about some movie I haven't seen. You don't have to watch the Dragonheart movie.
I'll see it. I'll watch it.
It's not good.
I know. I'm like, I just even see. I'm like Sean Conn. And the thing is, there's a sequels. I believe. I think there's a couple of sequels to it. So,
but anyhow, 5 sequels. It made money, man. I'm telling you, it was better than the 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Well, the 2000 D&D movies are terrible.
Like a root canal is almost better than that movie. Not really. The movie was definitely better than a root canal.
Really bad.
The blocking was really like the edit was awful. Like everything about it was really bad.
Everything.
Yeah.
So there's that. Let's see. That's coming out. And and
they announced they're doing a mini series that is in Daggerheart and in Matt Mercer's Daggerheart Umbra setting. So that has caused some people to speculate, well, if it's a mini series, that means it won't be the major series. But on the other hand, they could be testing the waters.
Yeah, I have a feeling we might be wrong in this one because during the live show, someone asked what's the next going to be. And one of the stars, I forgot who said it, but she said D&D. And then they joked, clue D&D. They tried to cover it up. So I have a feeling that she said it and she wasn't supposed to. So,
fair enough.
And I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a missed opportunity, but maybe they're just too scared.
It is more risk-averse decision.
So. Oh, definitely.
At least in the short term. In the long term, if they get new lawyers who get feisty again, you never know what's going to happen. But in the short term, it's a risk-averse decision.
So that was that. There was this timing was interesting. Is that Legendary Studios announced they're going to be doing the Magic: The Gathering, the movie universe, and they're going to do a ton of Magic. They're going to do a ton of things in Magic. And as soon as I saw that, this will be a topic for another week, that D&D is at least temporarily getting thrown to the wayside and getting thrown to the curb, because the amount of money D&D is making, D&D makes less money in 1 year than Magic makes in like 3 weeks. It's not worth the effort, at least right now. It just isn't worth the effort yet.
Do you think it was previously not on the wayside, like compared to Magic? Like, obviously, it's a big company, can be spinning more than one wheel at the same time.
No, I think they expected this to do. I think they were looking at their numbers and the line going up from 2016 to 2021, and they thought it would just keep going.
2024 was going to turn it into a rival for Magic as one of their biggest things.
They thought it was going to be $1 billion brand. I mean, they definitely did.
I guess they literally did say in one of the shareholder meetings that they were hoping to find ways to turn it into something. They said something similar to that.
Yeah,
right?
They said they're $1 billion brand. Yeah, they wanted to turn into that. I mean, the thing is, and Bob World Builder just did a really good review that came out today of the Monster Manual, and man, that Bob, he's really good. I tell you, I know we're friends with him, but his videos are damn good. He's really sharp. But he had a thing
he's
where
really sharp.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like he's getting sharper every month.
He is. We thought of him as a simple man. A man who is just in this for fun, but I have learned not to underestimate Bob World Builder because he's much sharper.
People like early in the OGL, they underestimated him, and we talked
Quite
about
a bit.
we knew him, but they were when they saw he was one of the people that was getting like the apology tour interview, they were like, he's just a nice guy.
He is a nice guy.
I know.
Easy thing,
he's
but it's like
exceptionally wise for his age.
I know.
Yes.
That's the other thing. He's very wise.
he's nice, but he knows what he's doing, and he knew
really
what
good.
questions to ask. He wasn't just gonna let it be easy at that time, and that's how he is.
Well, at the end of his review, he basically says that all the 3 books, now they're all out, the 2024 D&D books, he feels like they were basically just slight updates to 2014 with much better art, and that's it. And I'm like, there was nothing earth-shattering in any of them, and
That's honestly what we would expect. They almost
but that's not what they were selling, though. They were selling. I mean, they were doing the hard
selling things
sell.
out both sides of their mouth, though,
I
because
know.
they would have actually been a little scared if it was too revolutionary instead of evolutionary, because they didn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and lose people who would be like, this is too different from my 5e, so I'm passing. I'm going to stay with 2014. They wanted it to be so similar that even if someone did stay with 2014, they essentially could keep buying the new books or vice versa, because they were worried. They were also playing risk averse, other than legally.
They also couldn't spend the money on changing all the business rules in their VTT project that is probably dead in the water now.
Well,
like, we haven't really heard anything about that.
I have. I actually have. Yeah, I've heard stuff. I've been talking a little. They're still working on it. It's still there. They're actually. I think they just keep it. The problem is that this is the interesting thing about them, is that they have become a video game software development company.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got off a call, like literally right before this call. This is it's still probably going on right now, is that we were just going through this call of like a piece of software that I'm developing for a company. And we started this thing 6 months ago. And it's not even that big. And they're going through like, well, we told the client it's going to be out in April, but they're really angry. They want it out now. And it's just so slow. It's like steering, a tanker. It's just too slow. It's like it's the amount of time and effort you need to make software development is so much slower than like book development or game development. I mean, game development's slow, but it's lightning fast compared to software development. Software development of this scale is glacial.
Well, the interesting thing about it, I would say, is that the overall steering for software development is glacial, but the tight turns when there's like some kind of an iceberg or something like that, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's some kind of a problem in software development, has to be able to fix those things sometimes within like an hour, or it can be, depending on what your system is, it can be a mission critical error. Where in game design for books, it can take longer to do that. Yeah. So they're both faster at certain aspects of the business and much slower at others, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like the ability to
fix it.
Yeah, like the ability to correct something that's already been printed and is effectively living in the cultural mind of the people who play the game takes 100%. Far longer than just like, spending 3 weeks to make a software update. Yeah.
Even if you let people know very quickly that there's a mistake, if it's not quick enough, once it's living in their minds, especially if it's something that was written poorly in a way that makes it seem overpowered, and it was just clearly a mistake or a typo or just a bad wording. They just now after that, it's it's a nerf, and they always intended the stronger way, but they decided to change their mind or whatever it is because it's living in the zeitgeist.
Well, not only that, they just came out with a huge errata for the monster manual. I don't even think it's that big of a... Yeah. It came out like a day or two ago. And people are upset because they're like, come on, really? It's like you had all this time and some of the changes are pretty major. Like there's a fair number of pretty big changes. And it's like, come on, really? Like, you had all this time to print the book, and it was the last one, and just pages and pages of errata on these monsters being incorrect, really? So, yeah, day one errata. I don't know where it was, but people were not happy about it. But anyhow,
I wouldn't be happy either. I would want the book that I purchased to be good.
Yeah.
So, like, keeping in mind that what I love the most is the roll for combat style, where we put out the PDF first, we fix the errata in it. Steven gets the printers to somehow do that at a stage that I think is later than what Paizo can do without paying them a lot of money. And then they fix it in the first printing. That's my favorite. But keeping in mind that most companies that do the PDF same day as the hardcover and can't do that, you're kind of in a bad situation either way, right? Like once those mistakes are in there, I've heard people say like, oh, I don't want to do day one errata because people will get angry that we did day one errata. But I think people get angrier if you don't do day one errata and you just let it be wrong.
I don't think people are angry that they did it. It's just they're angry that you had all this time and why did it take so long? And actually, someone pointed out that the digital version's fixed. I'm like, of course the digital version. They're going to point that out.
It's like the digital version.
Yeah, it's like, well, if you go with D&D Beyond, you can always have the most up-to-date version,
No, but that's not why. It's because it's quick to fix that. But the book was already at the printer.
I know.
So they couldn't fix it there.
I know. But the point is, and back to what even Bob said, all back to Bob, is that they just, is it a bad thing that all they did was a small iterative update? And the answer is no. Actually, I think it's a smart move. They should probably do that every couple of years, is maybe come out with a new version, like version 5.5, 5.6, 5.7.
That might be a bit too fast by tabletop RPG standards and lifestyle. But maybe wait at least 5 years.
Okay, 5
otherwise,
years.
they're going to get the fan base to riot.
Fine. But, well, maybe Warhammer does it every 3 years, and they're doing pretty damn well.
You know what? Warhammer works.
And the other most popular war-playing game of its era, the West End Star Wars, like when it was in print, D&D was popular, but Star Wars definitely gave it a run for its money, and they had 3 editions in the span of 6 years.
Okay, maybe Steven's couple of years before.
It was like a revised and then a second edition and then a second edition revised, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Well, the point is that, and this will be a topic for another day, because they are now a software development company, we're going to be stuck with 5th edition forever. Like, this is the version that they're going to be using for the next 50 years. Like,
even because all their code is going to get thrown out the window if they do a complete revolution.
Yeah, they can't. It's too late. They've invested. It's not just, let's just redo the rules. It's, we got to redo hundreds of millions of dollars worth of code base and testing. And that takes years. And they have to, you have to have the game done before you can even put it into the code base. So they have to have, it's the development cycle. Like, I know, because if I did it, it would be like, okay, we have to finish the game. We'll say, we'll just do this as a thought experiment. It's like, hey, we're going to write and finish the game in 2 years. Okay, so 2 years, the game is done. The raw game doesn't have to be laid out. It's like, but the game is done and the game cannot change. It's basically locked down. It's near final. Okay, now we have the near final game. Now we can do the layout. Now we can get art. Now we can, figure it out. And there obviously will be small changes doing that. And now we have to rewrite the code base to match the game. And that will take another couple years. So before you know it, the game will come out in 5 years, but the game's actually done and designed in the first 2 years. But then it takes another 2 to 3 years to finish the code base and testing and then printing. And they don't do that. I mean, they kind of did that.
Unless you're Interplay at Fallout.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's like they really put themselves into a huge bind.
You make a really good point. I hadn't been thinking about that from resource-wise. And the idea of doing a revolutionary edition is inherently already a gamble. It's the gamble that whatever you make new will be flashy enough to bring in a combination of your existing audience that you want to bring it on and new audiences in such a way that it is stronger than what you would have had if you didn't do that. But now this inherent gamble is already a gamble. You're throwing in a massive anchor that is like slowing you down and stopping you from doing that. And the timing can't be worse because you need to play test and get people. If you want to keep anybody from your current edition, you want to tell them about it, have them play test. That would be at the beginning of that 5-year process. Maybe not the very beginning, but somewhere in there, right? Mm-hmm. That means that people will know about the new edition in this hypothetical thought experiment 3 or 4 years before it comes out, if you have to wait for the computer stuff and it all works out like you said, Stephen. And that's a kiss of death for the sales of the previous one for way too many years. I think that's just something in this thought experiment has to either change or you're just right. Well, that they can't do a revolutionary edition without one of those factors shifting.
Well, someone in Robin said, I hope they get to the topic sometime soon. Well, guess what? This is the topic because this is
Steven's leading into.
I'm leading into it. This is actually important
because of his experience with Marvel when he was younger and he lived near their office.
Yes. Well, before we get into that, and I'll give out my hypothesis. Why don't you just tell everyone what they can do and all that fun stuff, Mark, since you're so good at it.
Tell them what they can do?
Subscribe, super chats, all that fun jazz.
Well, everyone, we'd really appreciate it if you like this, if you like the topic, if you like us talking about these business comparisons and comparing things to Marvel, even if you like our random side rants about Dragonheart or other movies. Subscribe if you want to get to hear whenever we're making some new stuff. And hey, you can even join if you'd like to join the stream. I think that's mostly about it when it comes to the channel, but obviously we
super
have a lot of stuff.
If you do a super chat, we will answer your questions right away. Otherwise, maybe we'll get to it. Maybe we will. I don't know.
We sometimes do. If you're funny enough, or we look at it and we're like, hey, that's a really good point. But super chat, we're going to get to you as soon as we can.
So here is something fascinating. So I don't know if people know the history of Marvel. I'm sure they don't. Mark alluded to it. Back in the 90s, I lived only 3 blocks from the Marvel offices, and Mark T wrote, I love the side rants. They're the best part. Well, you come for the topic, stay for the side rants. That's the go-to. So Marvel was right down the street, and then my head programmer actually worked for Marvel, so we used to go over there for lunch a lot. And what was interesting is I was there during the time when they were not doing so great. In the late 90s, comics were in a very similar situation and area that where video games and D&D is now. So back in the 70s and especially the 80s, comics and comic shops were exploding. They were doing really, really well. I know this sounds crazy, but there actually were amazing things going on. And then in the 90s, comics were actually still doing really well. And Marvel was making all of their money off of comics. And one of the reasons why comics were doing well is because there was these, commercials, we would call them. I forgot there's an actual term for them, but there's those like He-Man and Transformers and the G.I. Joe. Remember all the cartoons in the 80s, which were nothing more than commercials for toys, but they were also they were also commercials for comic books. So they sold both toys and comic books. And there's a million YouTube that go through the history of this. Around the mid to late 90s, they were doing really poorly. How poorly? Well, Marvel went public. It was traded on the stock exchange. It eventually went bankrupt because they just weren't making any money. And then they decided to pivot and say, you know what? Think about this. Marvel went bankrupt. Marvel had no money because all they were doing was selling comic books. And then at the time, they were selling off the license for some of their characters like Spider-Man and, mostly Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four, Blade, a few others to make money. And these were very low-term, very low-stakes deals. And that's why the Blade movie came out with Wesley Snipes, because they sold it. That's why the X-Men movies came out. So they basically just sold the rights, but they weren't getting any piece of it. But then something happened, is that those movies did really well. In fact, those movies made more money than they were making in comic books. Way more. Like, infinitely more. And they realized, you know what? Comics are worth diddly, but we have dozens and dozens of years of lore and information on these characters which we own. And then they went bankrupt, and then they were bought by a company called Disney. And Disney said, you know what? They did the math and they figured out these brands are worth billions of dollars. And these comics, which are making a couple of $1 million a year, is not worth it. This is bupkis. Who cares about the comics? And I actually saw something pretty interesting. It was actually, Baron was there with me. Didn't we say that at one of our talks where we asked, like, how many people have actually read a comic book? It was like, how many people have seen a Marvel movie? And of course, everyone raised their hand. It's like, how many people have ever read a comic book? And like, nobody raised their hands. Nobody.
Really? Not even like one? Like, I would
very
not say...
It was like very few.
Yeah, I would not say I am a comic book reader in general, but like, I at least... when I was a kid, we would sometimes have like a regular looking book that like was a compilation of a few comics or something like that.
No.
Like
kids are
I had like a book like that was like Mario comics that I had for some reason, and another one with like a few Spider-Mans or something. But like, yeah, my dad read lots of comics, but I think that people, even in the millennial generation, not many people like read a ton of comics. But I would have thought,
no,
it depends on the age of the people watching you.
20s and 30s.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe they read zero in the same way that I read.
Yeah, but you know what?
Few.
Hey, to break it to you, that's the segment they're hitting.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
So
what if you asked them if they read any like manga or something or something like that?
Doesn't matter. That's not the point of is
those are comics too.
The point is, did they read any of the original source material that all this Marvel was based off of? Correct. That's really what I'm getting at. And the answer was no. And what I've been noticing, and this is all starting to come together. So Mike Merle said in his interview that when the OGL thing happened 2 years ago, that they were starting to sign a lot of contracts for licensing. And the licensing they were very scared of is that they were scared that people didn't need to use licensing because of the OGL. Because why do we need to license things when they could just use the OGL and just use our stuff for free? And that was a real concern. And if you know, so now jump forward 2 years, which is now, and now I'm starting to see there's a lot of D&D branded items coming out, and 2 years is about right. So you need about 1 to 3 years for these things to come to fruition. And now we're seeing there's a D&D theme park with like, with like, not Great Adventure, but there's a D&D theme park thing that's coming out. And of course it's branded
and the slot machines.
There's the slot machines, but there's the big one's the D&D theme park where they're having like...
Evermore Park?
What's that?
Evermore Park?
No, not Evermore. This is actually D&D themed. Hold on. It's let's see. It's like D&D and like Great Adventure or something. D&D Amusement Park. What's it called? Not Evermore. Does anyone know what it's called? It's like they're doing a co-brand with like Six Flags to actually do, you know how they have those nights, like the horror nights? So they're doing a D&D theme.
Oh, right. Yeah, you mentioned that. It's not a D&D theme park. It's like a D&D night at the theme park,
right.
Like the horror nights. You've mentioned that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes. So this is what they're doing, is that they're doing these not Evermore. It's basically, I'm messing this up, but what they're doing is that they sold the rights to do a show at theme parks, like whether during the day or at night, that's specifically Dungeons and Dragons related. And it has D&D. They even had like postings of like, you can play Beholder and it was at Hallow Weekends at Cedar Point. Yeah, that's an example.
Oh, Cedar
of
Point.
Like,
Okay.
that's one that's like there's a theme one for Halloween. And my son is really big into theme parks, and actually I am too. They make more money now on the Halloween theme parks, the Halloween theming of their parks at night than they do just like regular, the regular theme park. Like they make so much money on theming, and it's becoming a thing because think about it. It's like you go to Great Adventure or you go to an amusement park. How many times can you go on the rides? But if they do something special, that's like, oh, it's going to be Harry Potter weekend or D&D weekend or Marvel weekend. Well, then you have to go just to see that event. And so that's something what they're doing. They're doing a lot of these. In fact, there's a whole bunch of co-brands that they have been signing that are coming to fruition. A couple that died, they were supposed to do a D&D television show with Paramount, but Paramount's practically out of money, so that died. They're not doing that. They obviously did the movie, and they're actually still talking about doing a sequel or continuing it because the movie did much better. I know everyone said it lost money. If you want to see...
Did it? I thought it broke even.
Yeah, it did fine.
I thought that it broke even, but then after marketing, it might not.
No. Let me tell you. Every movie in history has lost money. When I mean every movie, the Lord of the Rings movies, which made $3 billion, lost money. Okay? I'll tell you a secret. They did not lose money. It's called Hollywood Accounting. You can look it up. Adam... what's his name? The guy who
they just lost money for tax purposes.
No, what they do is they do shell companies, and then they sell so what they'll do is they'll make a company and say the movie cost $50 million. So then what they'll do is they'll make another company that sells just cups, like just does the the food and beverage services for the movie, and they charge them $10 million. But it's their own company. So they're basically...
How is that not money laundering?
It's not.
It is.
It is, but it's legal. It's legal. And so what they do is they do all this stuff where they make new companies and they charge themselves more money than the movie costs, and then they lose money.
That is shady.
Yep.
That's why I said it's just they lose money for tax purposes.
Yeah. It's actually called, it's literally called Hollywood Accounting. You can look up just a lot of YouTubes on this of how it works. And it's designed because all these actors were getting paid based on how much money the movie made, and then the movie doesn't make any money. And in fact...
So they wanted to mess up the actors by doing this?
Yes, that's why they do it. And in fact, Peter Jackson sued, I believe it was Legendary, because they just stopped paying him and just said, you had enough, because the movie made after the third, because Return of the King made so much money, they just stopped paying him. And he had to sue them and said, no, you owe me like another $200 million or something. And they said, nah.
Jeez.
It's like, we already paid you $500 million. We're not giving you any more. You have enough. They literally said you have enough money. You have enough. We're not paying you anymore. And he won.
Wow.
Because it's like, no, you don't get to do that. But they'd rather...
You know what? Someone who has 500 million does have enough. But do you know who has more than enough? The people who have so much money that they just also want to really take his extra 200 million.
Well, that was the thing. It's like, they're like, we already gave you...
They have even more.
Right. That was the thing. It's like, we already gave you enough money. You don't need more money. It's like, no, that's part of the agreement. And he sued them and he won because they just stopped paying him. They were like, yeah, we're not going to pay you anymore. Anyhow, there's tons of these in there of like how Hollywood does their accounting, and none of their movies have ever made money. However, back to the original point, the D&D movie actually has been doing very well on streaming, and it actually...
I watched it on streaming. It was a good movie.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great movie.
It really is a great movie.
It's so good. It's so well done.
Pacing is tight. The acting is solid.
It's incredibly well done.
Yeah,
it's the best D&D movie that I've ever seen.
It's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
Basically,
general,
like
really
just trying
good.
to get over a limbo bar, but it was actually legitimately good.
So my point of this, back to the main topic, and then I can stop talking for at least a little while, is that the value
know
of
about
Dungeons and Dragons is not the TTRPG. No one cares. In fact, the TTRPG, I will say in 10, 15 years, it will become like comic books are now. It's that, do they exist? Yes. Do people read them? Yes. Do the majority of people who understand and follow Dungeons and Dragons and are into Dungeons and Dragons and watch Critical Role and go to live plays and all of that? No. They don't care about D&D. All they care is about the world of D&D, and they care about worlds of D&D. And I have two strong supporting aspects of this. First of all, they put in a request this week. They're hiring world builders, like people who will specifically build and create new worlds for them. So that's interesting. And I think people are like, "Oh, they're making
this like
new."
a Eberron
No.
contest?
It's going to be a new world, as in they're going to start over from scratch.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like the contest for creating there was like a contest for 4th edition.
Oh, really?
Create our new world.
Oh, okay.
And Eberron was the winner.
It was third.
Or was it third?
third.
Yeah,
During
that's right,
third.
sorry.
That was a big, huge thing that happened where they put out an open call. And there was like they got it down to the finals, and in the finals with Keith Baker, with Eberron was in there. I think like the author of the Order of the Stick webcomic was in the final. There were several people who were in there, and then they chose Eberron out of all of those. So now now that we're all old, Eberron's the old setting. But yes, Baron, I remember when Eberron was
Orth
a brand new
isn't?
setting
Greyhawk
that was
isn't?
made in that same way.
Well, that's the thing. They're not going to use those. They're literally looking for people to make new worlds. And the new worlds are going to be so that they can start fresh and start using this for marketing purposes, for books, for TV, for movies, for theme parks. Like, they need to just make a new universe that they can attach everything on. And I guarantee I know who the star of this is going to be, and you guys already know this. Everyone said Dritz. It's not going to be Dritz. First of all, his latest video
star
game
is in his name.
Well, his first video game did really poorly. The last video game with him did really poorly. Yes, he's a great character. He obviously has issues about him, being a drow and stuff. He is terrible for being used. They need someone who appeals to men and women, who is not a dark elf. I'll leave it at that, because there's issues with that in many ways. Is something ambiguous that will market to a wide variety of the world in a very neutral way. And
effectively they need a Han Solo.
They basically need a Han Solo. Or it's a Han Solo that can, right, a Han Solo is the perfect example. And they found one who has been in every single marketing material and every single D&D book that Hasbro completely owns. And who is this one person that we were talking about? Mark? Baron?
Well, a star is in his name.
Astarion. Astarion from Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate. The vampire spawn that everyone freaking loves, who hits every single one of those boxes, and
the
then
fact
some.
that he's in the monster manual, like, okay, you can excuse. Of course, why wouldn't you put him in like the player's handbook? You've got to have art of PC type characters in there, but usually there's a very strict limit on like the number of non-monsters that you even have room for art of in a monster manual, especially one with as many monsters as they chose to include this time. They had to cut a lot of lore. They managed to fit Astarion in there. I think that, like, you all know if you've watched the show, I don't always agree with Steven's predictions about things, especially if they're not related directly to business, but this time I definitely do. Like, this is a clue. They definitely want to cash in on Astarion.
Yeah.
Do they own Astarion?
Yes.
That's the question.
They own him. Yep.
How did they get him?
They own him. It's a Larian. They own everything that Larian did.
Ah, okay.
They own it. It's their IP and their license. It's sort of a combo. It's sort of a combo, but they own everything that's in Baldur's Gate 3. Now think about that for a second.
That's wild.
Including the characters.
The movie. There's the D&D movie.
There you go. And you're starting to see those characters.
Excuse me. There's the television. What is it? The live action series.
There is the future of D&D. And the future,
they could have the voice actor of Astarion or something like that show up as Astarion in like the next movie and be like, "Look, everyone, it's Astarion," and it'll sound exactly like him.
Yes, and they have Karlach. What is the one connection and what has sold really, really well and continues to sell to this day? And we talked about this, Mark, about how only 6% of all video games bought last year were new. Believe it or not, most people, now think about that, all video games in the United States, 6% of them were new sales. The 94% is people playing either older games or playing games they already like. Baldur's Gate 3 is the new Grand Theft Auto 5. It is going to be...
Oh, no.
Yes, in terms of... It's going to be played. There. It's not in terms of...
Not even close.
No. I know it's not close. I'm talking about in terms of playing consistently and constantly.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Not in
money. Not in money.
Okay.
I'm not talking about money.
Not in money.
No.
Let's be clear.
No, I wasn't talking about money. But there's a few games. If you look on Steam and you look at the constant plays, there's a few. The only reason I did that is because almost all the other games are multiplayer games, and Grand Theft Auto 5 has a multiplayer aspect. But there's these forever games. I mean, these are evergreen games. These are games that just people play absolutely forever, and they just don't have to keep. And Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be one of them. Like, it's going to be played 5 years from now, 10 years. Like, it's just going to be played forever. And everyone's going to know the characters. Everyone's going to know the world. And I 100,000% guarantee that they're going to be using those characters in their properties. That I wouldn't be surprised if you see those characters in that I gotta look up the freaking name. It's driving me crazy. The name of the amusement park show that they're doing, if they're doing any shows, anything like that, you know.
Right.
So my point is that they're gonna make their billions of dollars on the D&D name, the D&D brand, a world they create, and the characters they now have in Baldur's Gate 3.
Thanks to Larian Studios.
Yes, thanks. Well, they own it. They're not Larian, but they own the IP and they own the rights to all those characters, and that is going to be the future. So give us a few more years, and I think they're heavily pivoting because they realize, you know what? We're just not going to make these books. This is as good as it gets. We're just not going to make that much money. We're just not. You know, it's like... It's just, and especially now Magic is about to take off into multi-billion-dollar territory, which they've been trying to do for 30 years, that they're going to use that as the launching point for all of their properties. And don't forget, they're redoing Clue. They're coming out with a Monopoly movie, which is being produced by the same people who did the Barbie movie. So you might laugh at that.
Geez.
You might laugh. Oh, ha, ha, ha. I'm like, yeah, you know what? They made a lot of money on Barbie. They can make a lot of money on Monopoly. They're making properties.
Making something that was like a parody, but also was deeply cognizant of how it worked for Barbie.
It's
if you do that with
team.
Monopoly and take a look at
the same team.
At the capitalism and also what the original creator was trying to say with Monopoly, and then everyone failed to understand and decided to play it and have fun. There could be something to a Monopoly movie. I'm not saying it's going to be any good.
Yeah.
But
is Margot Robbie going to play Miss Scarlet though?
She's supposed to be no. She's going to be in the Monopoly movie.
Clue.
There's a Clue movie, but there are she is.
I don't know why I was thinking.
Well, there's a Clue movie. They're redoing Clue also.
Okay.
By the way,
are people going to be playing like the thimble and those things? I assume it'll just be like
they were removed.
I assume people will be playing like corrupt, like monopolists who are buying up things. So it's going to be more like one of those movies about like, I guess, like real estate finance.
It's going to be goofy and silly. And on top of that,
The storyline synopsis on IMDb is a trio of kids from Baltic Avenue discover that Charles Darrow, the inventor of Monopoly, hid a coded secret in the game that we've all been playing for generations, setting them off on an adventure through the streets of Atlantic City, racing through forgotten underground railroads, the boardwalk, and more as they are pursued by a near bankrupt casino owner, also competing to find Darrow's hidden fortune. So basically,
it's Ready Player One
World meets Jumanji.
It's Ready Player One. No, it's literally Ready Player One.
Something like what I thought it was going to be. That doesn't really sound very good, but I guess they succeeded with Barbie, so you can see what they do.
Well, Margot Robbie's going to star in it supposedly. So you know what?
Interesting.
As the corrupt business person who's chasing after them.
Oh, it's too far. It's way too. It's like it is. It's in the way too preliminary stages. You know that it's
apparently Kevin Hart is going to be in the film.
Of course he is, because he's in
also,
every film.
I could probably grab this super chat from a while back before we get too lost away from it. It was from Chen and Vichita, who said, "What in the OGL did Wizards feel they needed to keep? I understand keeping Drist and Beholders, but rules don't seem interesting to keep away."
No, I
think they were worried that it was not just rules, but that enough of their flavor and feel were tied up into the rules that could be taken too, right? Like if the names of the spells, the OGL names of the spells, which in many cases are the same, if they don't have like a Mordenkainen in there, are being used by somebody who's not paying them anything and is using the OGL, and some of these other things are being used without paying them anything and just using the OGL. Maybe that's what they were afraid of. If Merle would have had an inside track.
By the way, here it is. Universal Fan Fest Nights, Dungeons and Dragons, Secret of Waterdeep. And the event runs from April 25th to May 18th. It will feature a number of interactive elements with participants exploring exhibits, solving puzzles, and interacting with characters in a setting inspired by D&D lore. It's actually going to have a life-size puppet of the infamous Beholder crime lord Xanathar that's been created by the Jim Henson Workshop. And Universal Fan Fest nights, here's a couple they have, by the way, this year. They're going to have Back to the Future, Destination Hill Valley, One Piece, Grand Pirate Gathering, Star Trek, Red Alert, The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Super Nintendo World, Let's Go Yoshi, and this one. Let's see. It costs $74 for a single ticket, $250 for the Ultimate Fandom Pass. Of course it does. Let's go to the website. Let's see. You know the worst part about this?
What?
I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to fly to Florida. I might have to do it right before I go to Dream Grab, because it's right during Dream Grab. We might have to go on a little side trip, Barrett.
Oh my God. What day is it? What day is it?
It's from, let's see. Oh, I just opened up another window. It is from April 25th to May 18th. In Universal Studios Hollywood. Oh, in Florida. Oh, it's so close to you. You know it is.
Yep.
It's like, it's pretty easy just to jump on the plane. I'm already getting on a plane. What's one more stop? And my parents live in Florida. I can go visit them. They'll be thrilled.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go.
There you go.
It's like $100 for me to fly to Florida.
Yeah, you see? We're all gonna do it. Come on.
Right.
Look at Steven's delight about going to see this D&D thing. I just want people to see that, because I sometimes hear people on the show, like in the comments or something like that, being like, "Why does Steven hate D&D so much?" The other guests and Mark seem to like it, but Steven doesn't. No. He doesn't. He actually loves it too. He just he observes certain aspects about things that sometimes get him to make responses that make it seem that way. But he loves it. That's why he wants to organize this thing to go.
I love D&D. You misunderstand. I love D&D. I hate what it's becoming and turning into, and I'm just trying to break down.
Even one of the things it's becoming, which is a theme park, you love and you want to go
that
see.
I like. That I like. And the 20-sided tavern was fantastic. I loved the 20-sided tavern. That was great. It was so much fun.
Becoming a franchise, becoming something that they'll spin off into other things, that is what it's becoming. And you actually do love some of those, as long as they're good.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a bad thing. Like, none of this is bad unless you are a purist. Like, okay, I was a comic book fan, but I didn't read DC or Marvel. I read, like, The Badger, I read Mage, I read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Gru, my favorite comic of all time. Like, I read the third-party stuff, and I used to go to a monthly Comic-Con in my town or nearby every month for years, and it was a big part of my geek culture. And do I still read comics? Some. I actually have a couple here. Let's see, where is it? I have a couple. I have I do still read Order to Stick. I do have Knights of the Dinner Table. I read that one. I have a subscription, Knights of the Dinner Table. But it's like comics are just not a big part of my life, but it's a small part of my life now. I'm not super upset that comics are kind of dead and dying, because it's okay. Because if it totally disappeared out of the zeitgeist, I'd be upset. But it's not. It's in different places. And right now, Marvel's in kind of a bad spot. But I hate to say, the Thunderbirds movie looks like that could be pretty good. I think that one might be pretty decent. And the Fantastic Four movie, I can get into that, but they're marketing that really well. They're doing a very good, smart marketing campaign with that. And that one looks like that could be really good. So there's hope. There's hope. It can come back. So anyhow, my point is
this the same Thunderbirds that we later determined was it not the Thunderbirds, but was something with a very similar name?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't Thunderbirds. It was Thunder something, the puppet show. I forgot what that one's called. Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts.
Oh, Thunderbolts.
I just wanted to make it clear.
Sorry, I keep doing that. Thunderbolts is the movie. Thunderbirds is the puppets. I keep saying Thunderbirds. Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is a heist. They're all heists. But my point is this... So, very long. We got into it. Long story short, D&D as a TTRPG is going to be the tiniest aspect of D&D in 15 to 20 years from now. It's going to be a minute aspect. D&D is going to become a brand. It has become something synonymous with beholders and what else they use, really? Mimics. They use mimics a lot in the shows. They don't really use mind flayers. You'd think they would, but they don't. They definitely use...
But they did in Baldur's Gate 3 heavily.
Well, in Baldur's Gate 3, they used everything. And Baldur's Gate 3, everything's used, literally. Like, if it's inside D&D, it's in that game. Like, there wasn't a thing they didn't use. Obviously, dragons, but they don't really own dragons, which is one of the reasons that people thought, because they redesigned the dragons, that they redesigned them so distinctively so that they can, quote, own them, and that those are their dragons as opposed to common dragons. Especially if you look at the gold dragon's, like, really redesigned heavily in the new monster manual.
Honestly, isn't completely though, because even the very old versions of the gold dragon had some of the, if you look at some of the art, it had some of those aspects in it.
Yeah, but they're trying to basically make it copyrightable so that they can
use it. I mean, I don't think you're wrong overall. I'm just saying it did have some legacy in the D&D depiction too. Mm-hmm. So I think to condense what you're saying, Stephen, it sounds like when you're saying is D&D becoming Marvel, what your real main argument is the future of D&D might be that as comic books are to Marvel now, that the game books will be that for D&D when they get into their next phase.
Yes.
Where they are the thing that theoretically is what creates the intellectual property and is the center and the heart, but is really not making that much money and is not where the money and the business really is.
Correct.
I'd love to talk to you more about this next week.
Oh, that's
I
right.
Do an interview, and a lot of this comes up in that interview.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. A lot of this comes up.
Oh, now you really want to interview us.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this is the future,
he
right?
He told you, Steven. He told you.
I know. I know.
I tried to do an interview 2 weeks ago, but I've got to run, gentlemen.
What's that?
I've got to run.
No, you said an hour and a half.
No, I need to get moving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I wanted to hear your take on all this.
Well, I mean, I am actually putting together a massive project right now. When I was at PageCon, you were there with me, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
A lot of vendors were asking me if I could do a geopolitical analysis of the tabletop industry. So I've been working on that, doing a lot of expert interviews, looking, very closely at the entire global supply chain as it fuels anything and everything related to the TTRPG industry and its various offshoots. And I would say that what you're saying here is it's not 15 to 20 years. Let's just say that.
I don't think it's good.
It's close
I don't
to
think
7.
I think it's 10 years, to be honest.
Yeah, 7 to 10 years is probably accurate.
Yeah, I think it's a lot sooner than you think.
But I'm building out some scenarios as well as like the 10-year response to that. That's interesting. But no, I definitely want to. I don't want to say much more than that because I'm probably going to have like a whole 30-45 minute long video on my channel discussing it.
No, so we just stole all your thunder. Okay, got it.
You didn't steal it.
Right.
You did not steal it.
Okay, we didn't steal any thunder.
We can talk to you about this next week.
You
in the
stole
interview.
maybe like a slice of 2 to 3 minutes worth of content.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah. But,
You stole the Thunderbird out of his Thunderbolt.
There we go.
We actually have Professor on. The Professor won't join us though, but he could. You could if you wanted, Professor.
It's just sad that we just barely made it to the end of Steven's main thing before you had to go. But it is.
Well, I thought you said an hour and a half. That's why I thought we'd have at least half an hour. But
I
that's
thought
all
it
right.
was. I need to get moving. I've got D&D happening, and I've got like actual people coming to my house, and they're going to be here at like.
It's like
5,
a real game.
So. A real game around a real table with real paper and real pencils.
Oh my god,
that's serious business.
That's serious.
We can't keep you from that.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
that's the best reason to quit.
All right. Well, sorry about that. But Baron is going to be back next week, where he's going to interview us, and we're going to talk about where TTRPGs, I guess, are going to be in the next 10 years. And I guess
I've got a series of 9 questions that I will not share with you now, so as to make sure that I am capturing the rawest mind dump.
I think I already
us with.
Yeah, good luck. I think we already answered half of them in this.
There's a few that you haven't touched on at all.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Give me a hint.
It'll be fun.
Give me a hint.
Guys, it was good hanging out. I'll talk to you
all right.
Take care.
Bye, chat.
Let's move on to the super chats as Baron is heading out. So Chenin had another super chat that said, if Magic eclipses D&D money-wise, why keep pushing D&D branding then? Shouldn't they focus more on Magic? My take is that a big company like WoTC is focusing on all of their things. They can be spinning multiple plates at once because they have a lot of people. So they never stopped focusing on Magic. We're just a channel that is more about tabletop RPG, so we talk more about like every single thing that happens with D&D. We talk about it, but there's been Magic things happening all along. We just only rarely talk about them if they're as ridiculous as like the Pinkertons or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, they're doing Magic. Magic's just doing fantastic for them. But the point is that the only things that are really doing well for them is Wizards of the Coast. If you look at their statements, all their other divisions, they're not just losing money, but they're shrinking, and very fast. They're shrinking like 20% a year, which is...
I don't even want to know what's going to happen to those toy companies now.
No,
because they were already in trouble.
Yeah, no, they're dying. They're totally dying. They're really in trouble.
Toy divisions, not companies. Obviously, they're part of Hasbro. They're not a separate company. But
yeah, no, they're already getting rid of most of their toys. So their toy division's mostly dying. So the only ones making money is Magic, and D&D is making money, but it's making money off of D&D Beyond. That's where all the money's being made. It's all being made off D&D Beyond, and they've been running D&D basically as a software company for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it sounds like it's making plenty of money. It's just not as much as they would want it to be making.
Well, it's making a couple of $100 million a year, which is not nearly enough, and it's not making up what they lost in all their other sales.
I mean,
that's
it may
the
be
problem.
that it's not. It may be that it's not nearly enough, but apparently that was around enough for another company to tell Peter Jackson, "You have enough money. We're not going to pay you anymore."
Yeah, but but Peter Jackson also had Weta and had a few dozen employees and wasn't a publicly traded company as opposed to.
I understand that, Steven. I'm just saying it's funny how things can be when it's to your justification to decide what is enough or too much.
Yeah, I mean that's why they fired so many. I mean they fired thousands of people. They're closing their plants. They're moving their offices from Rhode Island to Boston for tax breaks. Like they're doing all this. They're doing a lot of things behind the scenes to save money. Like they really need to start saving money, and they're doing everything in their power. They also know that toys are dead. I mean, that's all. We've talked about this on this show many, many, many times. Toys have become basically the iPad. Like that's basically toys today. It's like the iPad and YouTube and Netflix. Like that is what kids do. Okay, they don't buy toys, they don't play toys, not like they used to. I know people are gonna jump in the chat and they're gonna say, "Yeah, I do too." I'm like, yes, okay, yes, people still do, but it used to be a multi-billion dollar industry. It's literally shrinking 20% every year. Every year, it's going down. Marvel's going down, Hasbro's going down. You can't even shrink. You can't even be flat, okay? If you're flat, it's bad, okay? They're literally losing money, and they keep losing money. And they're losing billions of dollars. They're not going to stay in business. As simple as that. So,
Steven, since you're talking about something that's bad, and I have no idea what this was in response to, I'll just make it sound like it was very apropos. We have a super chat from Dungeon Craft. It says, It's bad. It's so terrible.
It's so bad. Yeah, he just... Because I know... Professor wants it to be about the game and just the game and nothing but the game.
Oh, that's when he said it's bad. It's so terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was from, so I decided to loop it in at some point where you were saying something was bad.
No, I presume that's what Professor means, just because he and I talk so much. And I agree. It's like,
Are you saying he's not going to join you for going to the Universal D&D night?
He might. I didn't invite him. We just talked about it now.
Oh.
I don't know.
Sad.
I definitely want to go to that thing. I mean, I know I'm kind of joking, but I'm not really joking. I'm like joking, not joking.
I think you're serious,
No,
Steven.
I'm dead serious. There we go. I changed your name. You were Derek for a while there.
I was Derek.
I know.
Everyone. Well, I'm no longer Derek. I suddenly like other ancestries than like humans and elves and the things that Tolkien intended.
Pokemon is worth more in toys and branding than games. Yeah. Pokemon is actually... We know this. Pokemon is the most successful franchise in the history of the world of all time, ever. Like more than anything ever that has existed and has existed since and has existed to date. That's how much money Pokemon makes. It's number one in the entire world.
I remember, Steven, when you were starting off with Roll for Combat as a publisher, and you decided to quiz me, and you were like, Mark, what franchise do you think made the most money? And I guess Pokemon, because I was thinking maybe there was something that I was missing that actually secretly made more. Like, you know, it could have been that it was like Disney, Winnie the Pooh, or Mickey Mouse or something like that. I decided to guess Pokemon.
Yeah, they're in there, but they're not above Pokemon. Which is amazing because Pokemon's only been around since like 1999, which is kind of mind-boggling because that's how much money. But think about how many movies there are and TV shows and stuff. And they want to do that. But the problem is with D&D is they have two options. They could either spend their own money, which ironically they were starting to do until the CEO died, is that they bought... One Entertainment to do everything they're kind of starting to do now. They're literally running around in circles because they bought One Entertainment so they could start a movie and television division and they could actually create their own content. And Then the CEO died. They sold that division at a $4 billion loss. Then they pivoted kind of to a software company, and that's not been going exactly as planned. It's been not doing well. It's at best, I think it's losing hundreds of millions. At best, I think it's the only one that's breaking even and doing well is Magic. Like their Magic, app does amazing. Their anything Magic related does great. Anything. Period. End of story. And then 96. Actually, I think Pokemon was 96. Sorry. And so now they're going back. They're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to go back to movies and TV. But so again, they can either finance it themselves, which they were trying to do, and then they sold the company, so now they can't do, or they have to partner with someone, which is what they've been doing. Is that they wanted to do a video game, but they didn't want to make the video game, so they partnered with Larian. So Larian does the video game, great. Except Larian's making billions of dollars, and they're making a couple million. They're making 50 million or so a year, which is not nothing, but it ain't a billion because they only gave the license. And then you have Monopoly Go, which is one of the most successful games in the history of the world of all time. I don't know how it happened, but Monopoly Go is number one. It's one of the top profitable games in history.
But we know a little bit from your report that you found on the video games that they put in drastic amounts of advertising.
Oh yeah, $500 million in advertising. Yeah, but they only got a piece of it. They get a small piece of it. They only get the licensing.
But Hasbro doesn't have to pay for the advertising. Correct. They get a piece of the pie overall. But, and when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, they don't have to put in the redunculous number of person hours to make the game.
Right.
Either.
And now
they just get a piece at the end.
And they can start licensing it.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, it's true they didn't get as much money as Larian did, but they also didn't have to do very much compared to what Larian had to do.
Correct.
And that is the value of their IP bringing in money for not that much effort.
Mm-hmm. So
it doesn't mean they had to do nothing. I know from being at another company that depending on how much your company wants to sort of control and check to make sure that the lore is accurate and you're not doing something that's weird for your brand, you're going to have a few people that are tied to the project to vet everything, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that Hasbro didn't put any person hours into it. They may have put more than you think, but it's certainly way less than Larian put into it.
Yeah, I mean, Larian, yeah. Anyhow, that's really what it comes down to. It just comes down to... Oh, I'm moving you to make your screen go a little better. Is that the future of D&D is going to be marketing? It's going to be Baldur's Gate 3. It's going to be the characters. And I wouldn't even be surprised if this is the last version of D&D we see maybe ever.
Wait, you mean that they don't even do a 2024 style update ever? They don't do a D&D 2034 where they say this is not a new edition, we promise. But it has new art and there are slight changes and it's compatible. You don't think they're even going to do that?
No, I don't even think they need to. I don't know if they will. I think this is it. I think this is the version of D&D that we're going to have for ever, quite frankly. Because what does it give them to come out with a new version? As opposed to just
basically gives them a special time where they can sort of roll something else out. It would have been good for them, for example, if Project Sigil was done for 2024, and then they could be and look at what it comes with, this awesome VTT that we finished.
I know.
So it gives them a rollout time that is an onboarding time for new people potentially, especially if they brought something new, where someone who feels, I want to actually get into this, buy into this, but to do that, there's so much that's already been produced, can then instead feel, well, with this on-ramp, I can start with what they have now. I'm not behind. I still might be able to pick up what they produce later and be a part of it. That's what it gives them. And that's why it was smart, I think, for them to do exactly what they said we're going to do and not make a huge change from 2014 and instead just make small enough adjustments that they had something they could try to do that, but that it was compatible so they didn't lose people.
Yeah, and on top of that, I think what they're going to do is they're going to come out with updates, but they're going to just come out with small updates here and there around the existing rules, and they're going to also be online. I think it's just a very different thing. Like, you know, like back in the day, I'd say up to about 3 years ago, D&D has been treated as a game. And the books were good. D&D, the adventures for D&D, although they did have issues, they were pretty good adventures. They were traditional adventure paths as opposed to what they're doing now, which are really...
The D&D adventures, we've been over this on other shows, but in the era of every single set of D&D adventures that I've ever lived through, people didn't usually like the ones that were coming out then. And they always were like, let me put on my nostalgia goggles for the ones that had previously been out. That happened through all of them that I at least lived through. And I was not old enough to have lived through the very first one. So when I was growing up on D&D, those first ones were already in the nostalgia goggles for everybody. But everyone that I lived through, I heard people, I don't like this one. And then later they'd be like, this one was so cool. Like, it's just, so I don't think that's really true that things have changed. It's just that now the ones that are the current ones, the window has moved.
Well, I'm going to tell you how it changes, because now their adventures are not actually... So adventures, that's a show we could do, because adventures went from just dungeon crawls to adventure paths to, like, you know, long story adventure that goes through multiple levels. But now their adventures are just vignettes of 12, 15 small adventures that you can use in your campaigns, because that's what they find people kind of want, which is weird, because people will have those nostalgia goggles, say, oh, I did like that adventure book, but they're not going to say, oh, I liked all 10 adventures in that book. They're going to say, I liked adventure number 7 in that book, because that's the one.
Maybe that's all they need if they're trying to make it a brand, though, Steven.
Maybe all they need
is that a decade from now, Adventure 7 was so successful that a decade from now they make a movie about Adventure 7, or they have a video game with the popular character from Adventure 7, Sevan.
No, they're going to be doing their anthology adventures. Like, that's the future of D&D, is they're coming out with anthology adventures. They're letting the third parties doing adventure paths and doing long form adventures. And again, this isn't a bad thing, but they even announced that their new dragon book that's coming out later this year is going to be, it's like a scenarios of different adventures around different dragons. I'm like, that sounds about right. I'm like, that's not a bad thing. You know, it's obviously designed for people who are making their own adventures, because the average game is only like, 7 sessions. People aren't playing very long form games. People have very little time. So they really want something they can drag and drop. You can play for a couple of sessions and then you're done. And that's really what they're changing their mantra to. And also, I hate to say it, if they sell it online, they can sell each one of those adventures individually or together as a book. So they can also do that if they want. So
I have to say, I do understand people who like to have the small things that you can just do and not have this giant ongoing game. When I was younger, I only wanted to play these epic giant games that went on for so long. But now, especially, like, Steven, I don't get the free time to be playing games other than my tabletop, weekly games that we sometimes play, like, very often. So, like, I can sometimes get stalled in a long game where I play it and then I don't get another chance to play anything for like 3 weeks, and then it's like, well, now it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a short game or a game with little short spurts, then it doesn't get as much of a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's been happening to you as well.
No, definitely. So what's happened right now, we're finishing up Agents of Edgewatch, and we are halfway through level 19, and then there will be level 20, and it's finally over. And then the next one we're going to do is Jewel the Indigo Isle, adventure, levels 1 through 10. And that's probably A, it's mine, so I know it pretty well. And B, it's a shorter adventure path. And then I said to them, if they really want to continue it, there's lots of adventures that go from 11 to 20. There's Spore War, which just came out.
There are several. Yeah. And I personally recommend the one I'm planning on doing with my group, Fist of the Ruby Phoenix.
That's the other one. We're probably going to do that one.
The first adventure of Fist of the Ruby Phoenix is Despair on Danger Island, because you go to an island where it's one of those, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Island where they're doing the tournament, where you have these tournament rules and you see if you qualify for the tournament. And if you're on the Indigo Isles, you can get to a Danger Island. That's just my sort of thought, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to read Spore War because going up against what's the dinosaur?
Tree Razor.
Tree Razor.
Spore War cool. Sounds fantastic. I just think it's cool. Like an easy connection to Indigo Isles that
on top of
Fist of Ruby Phoenix has it, and it's a fighting tournament.
That's it. Like, we are so into 70s kung fu movies. So when I told them, I'm like, guys, Ruby Phoenix, it's got kung fu tournament, and they all like immediately perked up. They're like, really? Like that's like right up their alley. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good, So and it does have kaiju eventually, so I'm like, oh. So that is, yeah. I didn't reread it. I didn't read the Pathfinder 2 version of Ruby. What level are you guys up to?
Okay, so we made it a little bit farther. We hadn't played for a while, but we actually it was surprisingly smooth going through the dungeon in, I think, part 3. So they are still level 3, I think. They have
3?
not.
You mean 13? Or did you re-sugar it?
I'm not in Ruby Phoenix. They're in Jewel. They're in Jewel. We're planning on going to Ruby Phoenix if we finish Jewel.
Got it.
They're still level 3. They are in part 3, and they are almost done that dungeon, which goes right into the other dungeon.
Yeah. Oh, I know. You don't have to tell me.
So that'll take them to the end of book 1. We're going through it at a rapid pace, though. They did all but a couple of the rooms in one session. I was very surprised.
I will be interested to see how fast, if I run Jewel, how fast Jewel the Indigo Owl will go. Since, I'll reread it, but I don't really need to reread it too much. It's like
I think you know a lot.
I know it pretty well. That's the thing. I'm like, I don't think I need to read it too much. Well, the good news is I don't need to read it in terms of the overall mega plot and and the concept of every aspect and how everything fits together, but the little pieces of how things are that I don't remember. I don't remember every aspect of every room, but I could probably skim it, and that would be nice.
So Steven, here's my pitch for Fist of the Ruby Phoenix. Okay, is that there's one map where basically
I know one that wraps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because it's basically inside of a cylinder.
I saw that map.
Yeah, it's inside of a cylinder, but you only have about 5 feet of the cylinder, so it's like a donut.
Yeah,
and it goes up. And so the way that they depict that on the map is they depict it as flat.
I saw
because
that.
As you go from left to right, you're kind of going around the donut. And you can also go up and down because it does go up and down. So It looks like a side-scrolling fighting game when you are looking at the map that way.
I saw that and I thought to myself, because the map is this big in the book, but it has to be like this. I was like, that is a perfect example of why you need VTTs, because the map is it's 10% the size that it needs to be. It's so small in the book compared to how big it actually needs to be. But I did read that part. I skimmed through it, and I was that sounds pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Rad.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's at this point and stage that our characters, they need things that are really unique. And also they might get sick of their characters. That's the other thing. I might even do Fist of the Ruby Phoenix and just say, okay, you guys can be 11th level, but you can roll new characters. You don't even need to be the same characters if you don't want. Because I think that's a part of it.
They might just want to stop and be like, this feels like a good ending for Indigo Isles. Let's just do something else.
Yeah. That's something else, is that I think it's really just their characters, because they've been doing the same attacks and the same things And it does eventually peter out. Like, it doesn't look like they're getting that much new at the higher levels, and there's not that many spellcasters. There's only one, and he's a cleric, so it's not like, I mean, he's cleric and he took a little bit of wizard. I mean, he's primal, so he has some damage dealing spells, but he's healing 85% of the time. Like, his damage dealing spells, you know what his number one damage dealing spell is what's Electric Arc. That's it. That's all he does. He does that every freaking...
Isn't he level 19?
Yes! A cantrip, but it does well.
Is he mostly a support or healing character?
Yeah, he's healing. I said that. He's healing.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, he's healing. But you know what? It almost always hits. It does a
fine.
solid...
If he's healing, then he doesn't need to prepare any... He doesn't need to prepare any attack spells if he doesn't want.
Right, and it does a good 30,
if he
40...
thinks he's a damage dealer and he's level 19 and he's doing that with Electric Arc, I have some news. But if he doesn't think he's a damage dealer, then
he's not a damage
fine.
dealer.
Why does he need to have a big damage
No,
thing?
he's not a damage dealer. And when he does do damage dealing spells, he does have like level 9 fireball. He does have chain lightning. But you know what happens? He does chain lightning. The first person rolls a natural 20. Like, it always, like, it's just like, there's two. He doesn't like the uncertainty of some of these spells. Like, you know what's been working for him more than anything else? I can't believe it. Scared to Death. Just this game.
It's not that surprising. Scared to Death is very powerful.
Critical fail. So then I had to roll to see if he dies, and it was just a failure, and then he ran away. And that's like, you have the main bad guy spend his entire turn frightened to running away. That was massive. Like, they're like, oh, that thing, the tide has turned and it is dead. And that's exactly what happened. Because it's like,
you know what? I blame the main bad guy for being lower level than him.
It wasn't a main bad guy. It was a mook. It was one of 3 bad guys.
It's a mook.
Yeah,
then
17, level 17. But still,
if the mook had been higher level, or if that had been someone higher level than him, that could never have happened.
Oh yeah, but
it's still an extremely powerful feat. Perhaps the most powerful skill feat in the game.
Yeah, he has killed several things with that, and every time. Man, I have never seen someone happier. Like, he's like, that has been worth every point he's built his character around is Scared to Death. Like, Scared to Death has been, it's kind of amazing. And I actually am always happy when it does work. That and Banishment those are the 2 MVPs. Banishment, I can't believe how often that works.
Extremely effective against creatures that it can work on.
Oh,
it just doesn't always work.
I know, but when it does, because it's like, oh, that creature that's 400 hit points that's about to mess you guys all up, gone. I was like, he's just gone. I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty good. Fine by me.
It's a non-mental spell that targets will, so it works well on creatures that have bad will, that are like mindless, that are from another plane. You can just send them right back.
Yep, I say we're losing people because we're talking too much about specific games. Well, if there's something you specifically want us to talk about, now is the time. Look, your chat.
We covered the main thesis about Marvel pretty accurately.
Yeah,
like
or
right as Baron was heading out.
Yeah, and Baron, and it sounds like we're going to do a part 2 next week, kind of talking about this. But
I'm actually very interested in seeing what is going to be Baron's idea next week.
Well, I know he wants to talk to us about where, basically his thesis is where TTRPGs are going to be in 10 years. And I have feelings and ideas. So
I am curious to hear what 9 questions he asks and your answers to them. And I'll try to give my answers if they are Mark related questions, or just pass if there's something where it's like, I don't know this.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I've been feeling. Oh, so it's WoTC expanding. Has anyone been following their involvement in the upcoming video game Exodus? Okay, so that's something I kind of want to talk about, but I can never figure out how. If you notice, do you notice that there's some new science fiction TTRPG coming out by WoTC called Exodus, and no one knows anything about it? Do you know about that, Mark?
I mean, I don't know a lot about it.
I don't know anything. I don't think anyone knows anything about it. Like, if you go to Wizards of the Coast, and if you go to their main channel, right at the top, it says Exodus, Become the Traveler, a new AAA science fiction adventure, action adventure IP. Oh, I lost it. Hold on.
Yeah, it's even just directly on like Wizards' own site.
Yeah.
It's one of the top banner things that's on there.
It's been on there
just
forever.
Like, introducing a new AAA sci-fi action adventure RPG IP.
I think
means
all
departure for our ancestors. It also meant survival. Find out why.
I think all that happened is Exodus. Oh, who's making Exodus? It's either by one of their. Oh, it's by Wizards. It's by Archetype.
So they're making it themselves.
It's making themselves. It's one of their video game properties that they're also going to do a TTRPG around. I think that's literally all there is to it. I will be curious to see.
You can click on the link and go to their site and see more about it. I had not gone deeply into it.
Yeah. So you have the Battlezoo Bestiary, Year of Titans, the Dragon books. What else are you cooking up? Well, we have Living Legends coming out, and then we also have, I can show you, we have Battlezoo Bestiary for Shadow Dark.
Shadow Dark.
Look at that.
That's going to be the next one after Living Legends.
So Shadow Dark, a little too shiny, but you can see the awesome covers. And then and you can even see the black and white version. Look at that. It's really cool of each one. So we're going to have, I've been having all the iconics being done in the Shadow Dark style, and they look really good. So we basically are going to do a combination of new and old. So
it looks great, and the conversion is going well. We have one of the key figures in the Shadow Dark community who even did some of the figuring out on some of the math of converting between I think 5e and Shadow Dark is helping out with that, and I've been taking a look at them, and I've been surprised that they keep the simplicity of Shadow Dark while being able to keep up the narrative and the story of the Battlezoo options. One of the things I recently ran for my group had an ability that was just so randomly story, and it could never happen during the fight. It would only happen afterwards when you loot their treasure. And so I decided, I was like, I'm going to go back and look at the Shadow Dark one to see if it has this, because, you have to simplify it. Shadow Dark, you can't have everything. And it still had that ability, which I thought was a very important story element, even if it wasn't the most combat-y ability. So I'm very impressed with the conversion. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, we have some other quick ones. Kickstarter, Living Legends. Living Legends was supposed to come out next week. It's actually being delayed to March. Just was too much going on right now, and it's fine. So we're gonna have Living Legends. I
think that's gonna be good. Otherwise, it's
really
gonna be
anything.
Before Gamma, and we were not gonna be around.
Yeah, it actually just too many moving parts and too many things, and actually I'm much more relaxed now because I was getting really stressed to have it come out before then. So Living Legends, which I don't know, we have Titans up because I didn't have time to make the right card. But if you go to Living Legends, or just go to if you go to legends.rollforcombat.com, you can check it out. And I'm getting the cups sent here so I can show people what they look like. And I have a few other cool things. Living Legends. Oh, this is something new. Mark doesn't even know about this.
Whoa.
Or maybe you do. If you back the Living Legends Kickstarter, and if you backed any other Roll for Combat Kickstarter, you get a free gift. Automatically.
I did not know about that. I'm assuming that is different than all the things we previously talked about. It does not replace any of the other things that we've not announced.
It's similar to what we talked about before.
But it should not replace any of the other things that we talked about. Specifically, one that I'll talk to you about afterwards that it crucially must not replace.
Okay. I don't know what...
It's got to be in addition to the one that's very similar to that.
In addition? An addition. All right, I'll think about that.
Or go back to the other version of it, because the people who need to get a free gift are very specific.
True. All right, I have an idea for that too.
As long as those people get a free gift,
I see what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
mentioning who they are directly here on the stream, that is not given to anyone except for them.
Well,
then it's always good to have more free gifts.
I can either give a free gift to just the people who backed Year of Legends.
Yes, we need to give a free gift.
I can give a gift to just everyone, and it's physical
at
only.
Least
by the
one
way.
gift just to the people who backed the Year of Legends.
All right, well,
in my opinion.
All right, well, we'll see about that.
You can say in the comments what you guys think.
Well, the funny thing is, I was always planning on this. Now Goodman Games is doing it, and they're giving out stickers. And they're giving out stickers of things that you backed in the past. And they're chevrons, so they can fit together. But Activision did that back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, they had this thing where you would get it was a patch if you got a certain score in an Activision game, and you can join the Activision club. So, and I have patches for like every single thing. I was thinking of that, but sticker, patch, thing I'm giving out is just a little nicer, a little more useful. I'll leave it at that. It's something you could actually use in your everyday life. Assuming you're gaming every day, but it is a gaming. It's something that, because I was doing stickers in the past, and no one seemed to be that thrilled with them, and that's when we started to do mimics and dice kits and things that people just like. So I'm doing that more.
I'm just gonna say, if you stack up all the things Steven has shown me for signing up now as a VIP, for having already backed Year of Legends before, and for backing in the first few days once it comes up, you're going to be walking home with so much cool stuff that it, honestly, at another Kickstarter, you would have just had to pay the full price probably just for those extras that Steven's going to be throwing in there.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff.
It's going to be great.
Oh, someone wanted to know about Solastro 2. Solastro was a good game.
We talked about Solasta last week, right? That was the thing that Merle said was really got fire under WoTC and the lawyers.
Well, they were furious because they weren't getting a penny from that game.
Because they didn't get any money from it, and it didn't do obviously nearly as well as
it sold 1 million copies.
It did pretty well.
It sold 1 million copies.
Sold 1 million copies, of which they saw nothing.
And they didn't see a penny from it, and that's where they're like, got to kill the OGL. Because they're like, why would anyone sign a license with us when they can just use the OGL? And now suddenly all the language makes sense in the OGL, because they're like, it included plays, it included pantomime. Like, I'm like, it all makes sense now. Like, because they didn't want, that's like, it's like you wait long enough and eventually enough cracks appear. The one thing that everyone picked up on is that Mike Merles kept calling it 5.5, and everyone's like, they guaranteed that's what they called it in-house, that they just called it 5.5. And that
I still think that some people in-house called it 5.5, and some people in-house hated that name. Just based on how angry some people get at hearing the name 5.5 that are from WoTC. And probably the fact that a lot of people, even in the company, called it that, even though they didn't want them to, made them more salty about it. Yeah. Just based on my experience of being in companies where there's never going to be a single line that people toe of what they call things. That's just what it sounds like to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just Merle's that he wanted to call it that, but I think you're probably right that a bunch of people called it that, and then like 1 or 2 people high up were on in the like design and development team probably were like, no, come on guys, that's not what this is.
So the plushies, someone asked if if you want the plushies again, write me. I have a very small number of them, and I don't know how many I have. That's the problem. I won't get into it. I'm actually getting a little fed up with it. My warehouse moved. They bought a new warehouse, and their warehouse is gigantic now. And they have to give me what's called counts, and they don't even know how many I have. So I can't even sell them because I don't know how many I have, and they keep waiting every day. I ask where my counts are, and it's been a month, and I'm starting to get fed up. So if I don't get my counts soon, but if you want plushies of the Eldamon plushies, just write me, and I can sell a few, but I don't have that many. So
I know it's very limited on.
There's very limited. There's like less than a couple dozen left. Let's see. Agile Monk had a super chat.
Oh yeah, Agile Monk said, "I'm really sorry I was late. YouTube notifications continue not to work. Did we solve this question? By the way, I'm promoting RFC on a new site for TTRPGs I've been working on and releasing in a week." So we did. If you go back, look for when Baron's face kind of disappears and go like a little bit before that. And we solved it like around the time that Baron was moving through. Just for people who, I guess, tuned in after that, real quick, Steven's thesis is that as the comic books themselves are to Marvel now, that is what the game books will become to D&D within a decade. The heart of the IP, the sort of thing that spawned everything, but not where the money is made and not where like the company is heading.
Yep.
That's where we are on that.
Yep. And I'm willing to take that to the bank because they're done. There's no more money to be milked out of the current D&D IP. They've milked it as far as they can go without starting to expand it. And that importantly is that this was never not part of their plan, because these things take a very long time to do. They take years.
I mean, they claimed it was under monetized, right? They always wanted to monetize it more.
But now I think they're really realizing, especially after seeing what's happened the last 2 years, that they are going to start fresh, and they're going to be doing things that they completely own. Because here's the beautiful thing about Baldur's Gate 3 and all the characters in there, is that the OGL can completely exist, and it doesn't matter, because sure, people can still make things using the OGL, and people can still make things that use D&D, but they can't use anything from Baldur's Gate 3 because they own all that. So they can have their cake and eat it too. And that's why I think they're like, yeah, you know what? And they're going to make new worlds. And in those worlds, they're going to make sure they copyright everything. And like, yeah, the monsters they can't, but they're going to come up with a whole bunch of unique IP protected items in those worlds. And that's something else. Is like, if they're going to use existing worlds and existing realms that could be considered part of past OGL, yeah, they probably win in a battle, but they probably don't even want to go there. So it's easier, and it's just easier and cleaner for them to start over, which is why you see them like advertising and starting to realize that they just have to start over and just, use new IPs. And when I say that, it's like, oh, but that's like 3 years from now. That's like 2-3 years where you start seeing them appearing. It's not like, oh, you got to wait 10 years. And 3 years in corporate speak is nothing. That's like tomorrow. So there was someone asked what TTRPGs we're interested in. There's D&D, Pathfinder, and Shadow Dark. You know what? I don't have time to play anything, but I am very interested in... I do like Starfinder a lot. I did like Starfinder, the first version, a huge amount. I'm obviously pretty interested in Starfinder 2. I'm very interested in Daggerheart, just because... I don't know. It seems like it could be pretty cool.
I love TTRPGs. If I get a chance and an opening and actual time, I'll play just about any of them.
Yeah.
Except like maybe a few that I've already played that I know don't work for me.
Oh, and the Brotherwise, the Cosmere one. That one I'm definitely going to be interested in. Man, I saw they was doing it because he now has like a weekly show. And Brandon Sanderson is a gargantuan. Like, oh my God, he is a huge Magic player. So back in the day, way back before everyone knew who Brandon Sanderson was, I was hanging out with Brandon Sanderson, and I am friendly with the official D&D historian, Brian David Marshall. It's actually the very first website I ever did was for Brian David Marshall. And if you're in the Magic community, you know who he is. I've known him for... oh my God, 30?
He's a D&D historian who's in the Magic community?
He's a Magic historian who's in the... I thought
he was a Magic historian. That's why I wanted to check you on that.
I bet Magic. He's been doing it for 30 years, and I knew him back in the day. And he was like, I've never seen someone geek out over Magic more in my life than Brandon Sanderson. Like, he knew more about Magic than anyone. I was like, oh my God, this guy like loves Magic. He
loved Magic so much, he wrote something for them for free, just because he wanted to write something like in the world of Magic.
Well, there was news in the latest news because he ripped on the latest card set, because the card set basically takes all their characters and puts them in like vehicles and turns them into wacky racers. Like, there's a Tron vehicle, there's a Mad Max vehicle, and he's like, this is terrible. He hates it. He thought he ripped on them. And they said, okay, you have one of the most successful authors of all time with literally the most successful Kickstarters in the history of the world, the most successful backer kid in the history of the world, who's created the Cosmere. And when he rips on you saying you're doing a bad job, you might want to start listening. That's what the news was. He's like, yikes. It's like, that's not...
And he seems like most of the things I've seen is he's just kind of like a very nice and positive guy too.
That's why everyone was so shocked.
It takes a lot for him to give that kind of criticism, right?
That's why people were stunned, because they're like, because he goes on and he felt like, he literally says, he's like, it's wacky racers. It's like, we're taking all the IP and all the characters from Magic, because like all the planeswalkers, and putting them on motorcycles.
So I hadn't seen about this, but I'm looking at this now, and like, I feel like Sanderson was so gracious, even when that one guy who wrote the article about him did a character assassination, basically, and he was... But whereas he's kind of more critical about this Magic the Gathering set than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't play it. I mean, the art is gorgeous, but I can kind of see his point of view, because he would rather them explore existing worlds and spending time and energy expanding the lore and expanding the worlds that already exist in Ravnica and stuff, than to just throw them into some fake fantasy world that doesn't exist. It's basically a one-off that you'll never see again, and I can see where he's coming from. He's like, well, you only come out with one of these, like you come out with like one every, 3 or 4 a year. So you're wasting one of your releases on this goofy, like, it's not like a side set, it's a main set. So you're wasting a lot of time and energy on this set that now he felt like they should have used their time and energy on something else. So, let's see, a bunch of Magic players feel the same as Sanderson. Well, I made fun of Derek because Derek ripped on this set and thought it would look terrible. And then I asked him what he was doing Friday night, if he wanted to play some games. And he goes, oh, I got to go do Magic. I got to do the pre-release. And I was like, oh, you're like a crack addict. You like rip on it. And you're like, oh, this stinks. And yet you still did a pre-release. He goes like, he wrote guilty as charged. And that's why Magic is $1 billion brand, because you're like, man, this looks terrible. This looks the worst thing I ever did. I'm never gonna get over this. Here's my money. I'm gonna play it anyhow. And I'm like, he literally gave them this money to play this thing, even though he seems to hate it. Oh man, that is classic. That's classic. I don't know what you would call that. Denialism. Being an addict, whatever you want to call it. The art is gorgeous, though, I will say. I don't know if the setting's that good, but I thought the art looks really good. I don't know. I'm a sucker for fantasy and science fiction. That's like my favorite. So I love that. I love when they did that. So I don't know. I can see his point, but I thought it was fine. I didn't play the set though. But are there any other questions?
I think we covered it.
Oh, but wanted to know what the Kickstarters will apply to. So the next one. So Living Legends, when you do back Living Legends. So anyone who backed the Year of Legends, you'll get something special. And then I'm trying to do something that if you backed any Kickstarter from us, you'll get something special.
That'd be awesome if we can do both.
Yeah, I think
that's great. I love these extras, and people I talk to are always talking about the extras. And like how they're so much better than they expect, because since you're giving them away for free, Steven, I think people, I don't know, they didn't trust you enough on how good it was going to be. They were just like, well, it looks fine in the picture, but it's probably cheap plastic or something like that. And then everybody who gets these extras, like these mimics, are like, this is a solid metal thing that's like really well made and looks great, and it looks so much better than the picture that I was shown.
Well, yeah, everyone, the same reaction. Everyone gets it, and they're all like, oh my God, this thing is insane. And I'm like, yep, that's kind of the reaction I was going for. Well, the secret is that making these versus like some of these other sets, it's the same cost. Like, those custom dice sets, like that's one of the most common things. You'll see those custom dice sets.
Sure.
Those dice sets, they can cost me like $20 per set, which means that's why you see them just sold for like $80. Like, yeah, because they're real expensive, and
they're extremely expensive. Do you want to know, like, when you get those
that's what it costs
starter
me.
boxes? Yeah, when you get those starter boxes from D&D or Pathfinder or whatever, if they have dice for you in those starter boxes, those dice are such a huge percentage of the expense of the starter box.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that some of the Pathfinder beginner boxes, like retail price, even though some people are like, well, that's higher than the D&D one, which didn't include as many things in it. I think some of them are lower than or at least so close that they didn't make money when you throw in other portions, and the fact that it was sold by a store, right? I think the portion that goes back to Paizo from a beginner box at a store is possibly even a loss or not a gain based on the expense of the dice and some of the other plastic bits that are in it. They're heck of expensive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that, not that I want to get into it, but the mimics cost the same as some of these other items that people do, but they do require a lot of work. Like the mimic actually did require a lot of work. But then you have things like the stickers, which I did enjoy the stickers. Not everyone did. The stickers were a lot of work. And that was the other thing, is that people...
Linda liked the stickers, but...
But I get it. I mean, stickers are, they're okay. It's not as, in my opinion, you put it on your badge, you can put it on your computer, you can use, a lot of kids like it. There's a lot of uses for them, but it ain't this, baby. Hello there, Mr. Mark. People, actually, I showed this to some game stores, and they said I should make these and sell them in the game stores.
I remember that. I was there, I think, unless you showed it to them in a different time.
I showed it a different time.
We were at an open house, and people who run their own game stores said, please make these and give them to us along with the books, because we can put a display of your books and that mimic in front of it, and it will draw eyes to the display, and dice can be inside of it or whatever. That was not just one game store that asked for that. So,
this is supposed
Steven, I don't know if you heard that from somewhere else, but I was there one time when they asked for that.
I heard from someone else. So, by the way, the Fairy Dragon book is supposed to be in the warehouse this week, which means we'll start sending it out in a couple of weeks. And it takes a little while to get it into the system and stuff. But so these will go out, as well as the special edition Dragon books too, because that's in 2. So this is out. There was an error. They printed the cover of Misfit. This is Fairy.
That's Fairy.
That's Fairy.
That's Dragon. That's Fairy.
I don't think I have it here. I think it's in
You have the Bionic.
It's in my and now it's in the cabinet. But they actually made a mistake on the printing. So they're doing it now, but it's unfortunately been delayed.
That is sad.
Well, it was delayed like a month because Lunar New Year basically.
Lunar New Year. That's just a thing for the
3
tabletop.
weeks. 3 weeks. China is closed. It's basically Christmas.
It's a big secret about the tabletop industry is if you can't get it in right before Lunar New Year, you will not see it until a month later.
Yep. Well, they told me that. They kept saying, every emails.
Steven, it's not a secret to people who are actually in the industry. It's a secret to the fans who might be surprised by the fact that they're like, wait a minute, this project, it sounds like they only got delayed by a few days. Why is it being pushed back by a month? And it's because it may have gotten delayed into Lunar New Year.
Well, not only that, as someone who now works, I've been working with China pretty much for about 20 years now. They get so much time off. It is actually kind of amazing. So Lunar New Year, the country pretty much closes for 3 weeks. It's just nothing gets done. I mean,
did they get that much more time off than Europe?
They're about the same, because there's many times they'll be
really, we just get an incredibly low amount of time off in the US.
No, but they have
the rest of the world is just what are the people in America doing?
Because it's government sanctioned, they will get me emails. They'll be like, we are closed this week. It's not like here where you're closed a day. No, they're closed weeks. And I remember that like every 6 weeks or so, they're just closed. They're just closed for the whole week. And I'd be like, isn't this a communist country? like they seem to get like 8 weeks off a year.
Hold on, Steven.
We don't.
Steven, if a country actually was following the principles of communism, which, to be clear, pretty much none of the communist countries that exist in the world have done.
It's not a
They
communist.
should be giving people time off, right? Because
Right.
the idea is that everything will be distributed well to everybody, and it won't just be taken by the people who are the
Right.
wealthiest, and you'll have time off
Anyhow,
and other things like that. Like there are things to be said that some people in modern Russia who were like, the Soviet Union was brutal, but when it ended and we were actually given our own private property, like basically they say that they were threatened with their life by people from like the mob or just with a lot of money. We're like, great, you got this new property, it's in a really good spot, you're going to sell it to me for 10% of what it's worth or I will kill you. And then they lost it, and so they actually had less than when they were under the oppressive Soviet regime that then they wound up with after Yeltsin and all the other things. So there's a lot of stuff that happens and goes on in the world like that. But I would say the United States is very special in the way that we give almost no time off. Europe, China, many different places give a lot more time off than us.
But it is getting made up finally, because I am a proponent. I have been working for myself and at my house. I work from home basically for 25, 30 years now. And I've been a proponent of that. And it's funny because now, after COVID, everyone does it and no one wants to go back, because not only do I feel you work less by working at home, but you get way more done. It's like you can work 40 hours or 50 or 60 hours at an office, but you might only get 10 hours of billable work done. While I can work 30, 40 hours at home and I will get 50 hours of billable. I'll get more billable work done. And I've said that. Yeah.
I get it, because at offices, there's meetings, there's interruptions, there's
I get
renovations.
nothing done. Nothing. When I was in an office, I would have to go into offices for meetings. And that's like my whole day. It's just gone. I was like, I will not get anything done this day. Nothing.
Especially if you get randomized a lot, which fortunately, Steven, you don't. And I know this because I see you coming in every second with these random things, and I don't either. But I had some coworkers when I was at Paizo who didn't get that randomized. If some person came over and an editor asked a question or something like that, they were fine with it. But there were others who were like, it would take them 15 minutes before they could get back to the thing that they were on and actually be back in the groove and be doing it every time. Yeah. And there would be interruptions. So those 15 minutes would happen like 4 to 8 times a day. So that was an hour to 2 hours of just no, like you said, they were working, but they didn't get the work done. It wasn't their fault. It's not like a fault of a person that if someone comes to them with a random question about something else that takes them time to get back in the groove of what they were doing before. So I'm with you on that. It does have some disadvantages in the sense of like when your work is at home, then when you're at home, you're still kind of at work.
There is an issue with that.
Especially with like you and me, where you might send me questions like on the weekend at any hour. It's hard to be sure to myself that I'm not at work and that there's a boundary where I'm just definitely relaxing. But I think it's definitely worth it.
It's worth it because the biggest issue is, when you were at work, I'm old enough that I'm old enough that people used to smoke at work. Okay, how about that? But you would go to work and then you would go home and that was it. There was no you did not see work until the next day. There was no calls, there's no emails, there's no cell phones.
It was just like that TV show you told me to maybe not watch because it was depressing, where your mind was wiped after you left work and you were just a different
Severance.
person.
Yeah, Severance. And that seriously, that is that was what it was like, and that was fine. But then remember in the 2000s, there was all those articles about work-life balance is going, especially with once cell phones came around and iPhones.
It was all about cell phones, where it was like then your boss would contact you on the cell phone.
Yes, but it helped out. But then I would see the alternate. I would see the opposite, where you would have people like construction workers and people that work in the field, that this was a godsend for them, because suddenly, think about if you were like on a construction site, you're totally out of pocket all day. Like, there was no way for anyone to get in touch with you. And and it was a real problem. It's problems for people's marriages. It's problems for people just getting in touch with them. I mean, there's a lot of issues. And I was seeing a lot of articles about this, is that it was mostly construction workers that suddenly, because talk about, like, it's like one thing if you were a worker on site, but at least you had somewhere to go to that you can get calls and access. But if you're like on a skyscraper, there's nowhere for you to just get access. But you have a phone, they can get in touch with you anytime, anywhere. Your family, your friends, your coworkers. I mean, it was revolutionary, and it was changing. It literally changed the world. And it's pretty fascinating to see the future of phones. And that's like the good side. The good side is that it has managed to. The best quote I ever saw is that cell phones managed to give the same power to the average person as what the president of the United States had in terms of power in like the late 1990s. Like the late 1990s, the president of the United States had the same amount of power and access as what a cell phone had, if you think about it. Now everyone has that level. I feel like
there may be something of a disparity in the number of military forces that
in the
1990s would be able to deploy
in information
than a person with a cell phone currently can.
No,
Steven.
but I know. But
you mean in terms of like communication and gathering information?
Yes, and also just being able to contact. I mean, think about it, especially now. It's like if you need to put together a meeting with everyone around the world. We can do it in 5 seconds. It's like, hey, it's amazing. Through your cell phone, you can just do it.
My gaming group, which started with everyone in MIT, but now, there are people in every different time zone, like Pacific Mountain, one person who is sometimes in Vietnam, one person who is in Taiwan, like... There's people that are just literally one time one person was in Sweden, which was even more challenging because of the other person who was in Taiwan. So we just do it and it works.
And even 20 years ago, you would have to get specialized equipment. You'd have to get these Cisco systems that cost millions of the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. Like, you'd have to get all the specialized equipment if you wanted to do it. And then suddenly, it's incredible how quickly it's like, COVID, and then everything changed. And now everyone works from home. Everyone does it remotely, which is only funny because we were doing it for 20 years. So it was like, no big deal for us. Another day in the office. Remember, that's a funny thing is you and I started that way, and you were still working at Paizo, and they still had offices, and now they're remote too. Everyone's remote.
Yeah, no, they went remote, even though I had gone remote with you first, and then they went remote.
Yeah,
and it worked for them.
Yeah, it works.
There's probably some amount of bonding that is lost by the fact that it was fully remote, and in the sense, for Paizo, that it feels like maybe you could become a little alienated from the other people when you have that many people in the company and all of them are remote and they only meet virtually, compared to the times of like seeing them face to face. But I feel like that could have been achieved with a very small number of meetups, essentially, and it would still be better for it to be mostly remote.
Well, now, because I live right outside of Manhattan, what most of the companies are doing. And these are companies, these are multi-billion-dollar companies. Like I have friends who work for Chase and Citibank, and and they're not giving up their offices. Like they literally own these offices. So what they have been doing is they were all in the office, then they were all remote, and now most of them they go in the office 2 or 3 days a week, and a lot of them seem to like that. They seems to be the good balance. It's like, they go in, so they don't mind going in Not every day, but they go in a few days, and they like that because then they do get the face-to-face time, and they do get out of their element because it does help to get out of your own home office. But then they're also still home when they want to be or when they can be. So it's sort of a nice mix. And I know so far a lot of people seem to like that. The problem is that a lot of the higher ups, they still go in 5 days a week and they want everyone to be in 5 days. That's the war that's going on.
I'm going in, you've got to go in.
Oh, well, my wife, when she was working for Hearst, she was the very first employee in the history of Hearst to work at home. She was the pilot program. And she had a boss who was, from the 50s type thing. And he's like, everyone's got to work here. Everyone's got to work in the office. Everyone's got to work, right? And then he quit or retired. And then her new boss was, I think, younger than her. He was pretty young. And he was pretty hip and he was pretty fun. He was kind of goofy. He was kind of like the silly guy. And Val, my wife at the time, was pregnant and the kids were little. And they said, well, why don't we try that you can work first it was like 1 day a week at home, and then 2 days, then 3 days. And it was so successful and they liked it so much. She was literally the pilot program for the whole company that they then started to institute it within her division. And she worked for a magazine publishing. She worked with the advertisers for like 17 and Oprah. So like, you ever see those like special inserts? Like she would work like anything special. Like if you opened up and there would be perfume in the magazine. So she works on those. She did some crazy ones like televisions and magazines, believe it or not, like LEDs, like you open it up and it was actually a TV. Nuts. Anyhow. So, and then they eventually decided, unfortunately, I'll tell you the slippery slope. It went from everyone had to be in the office in the Hertz building to people could start working from home to, wow, we're going to make more money renting out the Hearst building in Manhattan and having our people work at home than to have them working in the building. So then they started to rent out the building. And then they decided, you know what? Everyone, we're renting out our Manhattan office and we're moving you all to Florida or South Carolina. Take it or leave it.
Wow.
And then she lost her job.
Then after that, they made them come back to the office in like 2021, right? Or they were trying to.
Well, she lost her job because they said you can either take a retirement bonus option thing, like you get bought out, and she got like a year or whatever.
Oh, I see. It's one of those things where they try to like essentially fire you without firing you.
No, they're not. No, they're not even firing.
If they want to downsize the
no, they're just relocating. They relocated.
Yeah, but sometimes companies relocate so that they can relocate to somewhere they know people don't want to move to, so that then they haven't technically fired you when you say no, I'm not going to do it.
It was either Florida or South Carolina or North Carolina. Maybe it was North Carolina. But
even the government sometimes does that because they can't. It's very difficult to actually
they would have paid
civil servants, but you can just try to move their job to somewhere that they won't want to go.
Oh yeah. Well, if it wasn't for the fact that our kids were like in school and we had lives here, like I might have done it. I mean, like North Carolina is pretty nice, and even parts of Florida. Like it wasn't like they were going to bad places, but we just couldn't do it. I mean, it was like you can't just pick up and leave. So she obviously did it, and we stayed here. But I think a fair number of the people, because there was like young, they went there. And also, so the thing is, we saw it go from magazine publishing was all based in Manhattan, and not just based in Manhattan, but it was based in this one little part of Manhattan, and it's all gone. It just went from all magazine publishing, Manhattan based, Time, Newsweek, Hearst, all the big publications, Ziff Davis, they were all there. The ones that still do this all moved to cheaper states, and the others went out of business. It's all gone. It's kind of amazing. So
yeah.
Anyhow, I think we covered the topic and then some.
We've managed to go quite off the topic, but I think it was interesting in its own right.
Yeah, we always do. Well, because I think I answered the topic
early on
pretty
when
fast.
I said, you can come for the rants about Dragonheart, and someone says, yeah, we love the rants about Dragonheart. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, next week, Baron's going to be on, and Baron's going to ask us questions. He's going to ask us
9 secret questions. Although maybe if he's already done it to other people on the air, maybe they're not that secret. But they're secret to us because I haven't looked them up.
And he's going to ask us where we think TTRPGs are going to be in 10 years.
So if you want to see our answers and also Baron's analysis of TTRPGs in 10 years, then you should come next week for another episode of Roll for Combat Live.
Otherwise, I will see everyone next week. So yeah.
Hey, you, tabletop gamer! I know that you've played your way through the Tolkien back catalog of elves, dwarves, halflings, and sexy elves. Now you're looking for something new, something a little weird, something that fills in the gap between nostalgia and monstrosity. Well, listen up, sicko! Battlezoo Ancestry Living Legends is here to fill that hole. Featuring 14 unique ancestries for your Pathfinder 2e or D&D 5th edition games like Swarmblood, a creature made of hundreds of other little creatures. Ew. Gargoyles, where you can disguise as an ordinary statue but also become a warrior of the night. Angels, devils, sphinxes, evil eyes. Look at them. I love them and will die for them. And the most chaotic ancestry of them all, fusions. Play as an ancestry that combines multiple characters in one, like a chimera, or two-headed giant, or even a mighty hydra. Is that a party in your character, or are you just happy to see me? You could either share this character with other players or control it all yourself. In front of you is a golden idol placed on a pedestal.
My character does an Arcana check to determine its origin and any possible enchantment that might I'ma stick it up me bum.
Battlezoo Ancestry's Living Legends includes in-depth information about each creature's culture, society, and history. Plus, you'll get hundreds of digital tokens and illustrations that work with any VTT, and thousands of unique options and custom rules for players or game masters to build the strangest characters imaginable. So what's stopping you from playing as a weird and wonderful legendary creature, huh? Check out Battlezoo Ancestry's Living Legends at legends.rollforcombat.com today.
Don't forget you can get the book digitally or in a beautiful hardcover. I'ma stick that up me bum and all.